Back here on this Saturday morning, Sports Medicine Weekly. Steve Cashel, your host, joined this week by Dr. Charles Bush Joseph, filling in for our usual co-host, Dr. Brian Cole. Time now for our Ask the Doctor segment on Sports Medicine Weekly, giving our listeners the opportunity to have Dr. Chuck address their specific sports injury issues. Very easy to get involved. You can send your questions via our website, sportsmedicineweekly.com. Go to the homepage on our website. Look for the picture of Dr. Cole and yours truly on the right side of that homepage. Click on that link, and you can ask the doc a question. And let me remind everybody that this segment is presented by Optimum Nutrition, available at optimumnutrition.com. Ready for some good ones here, Dr. Chuck?
Steve, I'll do my best.
All right. Question number one from one of our listeners for Dr. Charles Bush Joseph. What are ways to focus on bone health?
You know, Steve, I got to tell you, over the past 5-8 years, even in professional sports, we recognize this now more than ever. And I can tell you that, we're testing calcium levels, vitamin D levels in all our professional athletes. And it's surprising. We're talking about the best athletes in the world, how many of them are undernourished. So certainly this is a duty of all of us. And just as one last point I'd like to make, especially for young women, we're basically building calcium, building vitamin D. We're building our bone strength up until about age 28, 29. And after that, it's all withdrawals. So we look at it as a bank. You want to put as many deposits into that bank until the time comes when you've got to start withdrawing. So, everything we discussed today that we're going to discuss, calcium, vitamin D, those are critical elements. And I'm a big believer personally in vitamin D supplementation is just as important as calcium supplementation.
What's the best way to get the vitamin D? I know during the winter months it's difficult because you get it through the sunshine, right?
Yeah, when the sun only shines every 10th day here in Chicago. I tell you, the best way is certainly nutrition, and green leafy vegetables is the best. But even with that, I'm a believer that the supplementation is appropriate. And using a multivitamin with calcium and or a multivitamin with vitamin D, or what I do, like many adults my age should do, is I take vitamin D capsules on a regular basis.
Okay, good stuff. Question number two on our Ask the Doctor segment, again with Dr. Charles Bush Joseph, orthopedic surgeon from Midwest Orthopaedics at Rush. Dr. Chuck, they're asking now, what are the athletic benefits of creatine?
Creatine has been very popular. It really gained heavy use in our high school athletes. And unfortunately, there's some secondary problems with it. What all athletes want to do, they want to build muscle. And how do you build muscle? You build muscle by building protein. And so you see a plethora of products, post-workout products that help you gain muscle mass. And so the timing is actually pretty critical. And certainly you should go to our websites and look at some of the information on this. Creatinine is a very effective way of adding muscle protein, but you must be cautious. And the downside of the use of creatinine, it makes you really at a greater risk for dehydration and muscle cramping. So there's times where creatinine is beneficial and very helpful, but certainly should not be used in an unsupervised manner. So if you're using creatinine, you want somebody that knows and helps you use this in a proper manner. Hydration is actually critical. Anything that helps you build protein after workout helps you add muscle mass. And so it's really proper sequencing of nutrition, of which creatinine is a reasonable tool.
I've been saying creatine for the last 40 years. Is it creatine?
No, it is. You can pronounce it either way. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I remember, lifting in the old Gold's Gym back in the day. Creatine was really the big supplement guys were using, I think.
I can't tell you, for my two young boys when they were in their high school and college athlete days, we were buying supplements quite a bit. And unfortunately, there's quite a bit of product markup in these days, but any product you buy for supplementation, in my mind, should have the NSF, the National Science Foundation, verification that it's been properly tested without having undue contaminant. So any supplement that your children or your athletes are using should have that NSF Foundation label.
Yeah, that's hard. Whether I buy a fish oil, and I'm a big proponent of fish oil, I worry about buying it from the local drugstore. I always go through Karen Malkin, who's our health and nutrition expert. Karen Malkin, MALKIN.com. I go to Karen because I take turmeric and fish oil, and I trust Karen because she always has the the best stuff, so to speak, and she'll recommend you on instead of the stuff that's not purified, right?
And Steve, I've become a big believer myself over the past 5 years about the value of supplements. I think for the longest time, most physicians say, well, if it's not a prescription, it doesn't really matter. And that's not the case. All of us want to use natural methods to improve our health and focus. And the supplements you suggested, which on our website as well, are all available and appropriate.
Okay, next question on our Ask the Doctor segment for Dr. Charles Bush Joseph. How often can I train a muscle group for muscle growth without overtraining?
It depends. If you're trying to build and add muscle mass, I think anything more than 3 times a week is too much. But for most of the time, if I'm in that mid-season portion of my training, I want to be using that muscle at least 5-6 days a week. So again, am I in the maintenance phase or am I in the building phase? If it's a building phase, if you look at professional weightlifters or what our professional trainers are teaching our professional athletes, and certainly in NFL and Major League Baseball and NBA locker rooms, they're working a given muscle group 2 to 3 times per week, and they're working that muscle group hard. And then the other days, I'm going arm day to lat day to butt day to abdomen day. And you want a sequence where you're following on, where each muscle group is hit on every third day, where I've got the second day to rest and the third day to stretch, and then I'm ramping back up.
So it's all about tearing those micros, right? I mean, the micro tears are what's important.
You want to build muscle without overly damaging muscle. And yes, there has to be some breakdown.
Sounds like a fine line, though.
It's a fine line. And so usually if you work the muscle too hard, build up too much lactic acid, too many byproducts, it's going to take longer for those toxins to clear the muscle group. So obviously the post-exercise period of circulation, massage, stretching, and heat is just as critical.
Dr. Chuck, great stuff. I appreciate you joining us and filling in for Dr. Cole this week, and continued success with your practice at Midwest Orthopaedics at Rush.
Thanks, Steve. I always enjoy our listeners' questions, and it's always a pleasure coming on here Saturday morning with you. All
righty. Well, that will do it for this edition of Sports Medicine Weekly. Many thanks to our producer this week, Adam Stasinski. Our coordinating producer, as always, Tracy Toro. Also want to thank David Cole for managing our website, which is sportsmedicineweekly.com, and our business operations. And then we thank Samantha Smith from Midwest Orthopaedics at Rush. For Dr. Charles Bush Joseph, filling in this week for Dr. Brian Cole, I'm Steve Cashel saying so long. Thanks for listening to Sports Medicine Weekly here on The Score. Up next on The Score, Early Odds with Joe Ostrowski. Back next week, next Saturday morning, 8 a.m., with a brand new edition of Sports Medicine Weekly, only on 670 The Score.